Hare Krishna, welcome. Welcome everybody. Happy to see you all. So this is Krishna Dasa. Today we are going to start chapter 16. Another wonderful chapter from the Bhagavad Gita. So before we begin, I'll say the prayers to Guru and God and then I'll play the Guru Mantra. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshuram Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha.
Hare Krishna. So today we will do 16.1 to 16.6. And before we begin, I will play the slokas. You're all ready?
षोडशोऽध्यायः Daivāsura Sampada Vibhāga Yoga Shri Bhagavan Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi Danam Damascha Yagnascha Svadhyayastava Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodhastyaga Shantirapayishunam Daya Bhuteshvalo Luptvam Mardavam Hrirachapalam Tejah Kshamadhriti Shaucham Adroho Natimanita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivīm Abhijatasya Bharata Dambho Dakpobhimanascha Krodah Parushyameva cha Ajnanam Chabhijatasya Partha Sampadam Asurim Daivi Sampada Vimokshaya Nibandhaya Surimata Mashuchah Sampadam Daivīm Abhijatosi Pandava Dvau Bhuta Sargo Lokesmin Daivāsura eva cha Daivo Vistarashah Prokta Asuram Partha me Shruno.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Kalpana ji, you are reading today?
Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna, everyone. Verse 16.1. The Blessed Lord said, Fearlessness, purity of heart, steadfastness in wisdom and yoga, charity, control of the senses, sacrifice, study of the scriptures, austerity, and honesty and straightforwardness. 16.2. Non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, absence of malice, compassion for all living beings, freedom from greed, gentleness, modesty, and steadiness. 16.3. Vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, purity, absence of treachery, and absence of excessive pride. These are the saintly virtues of those born with a divine nature, O Bharata. 16.4. Hypocrisy, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These, O Partha, are the qualities of those who are born with a demoniac nature. 16.5. The divine qualities lead to liberation, while demoniac qualities lead to bondage. Do not grieve, O Pandava, for you are born with the divine qualities. 16.6. There are two types of beings in this world, the divine and the demonic. I have already spoken about the divine type in detail. Now hear from me, O Partha of the demonic. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So, in the previous chapter, we studied Purushottama Yoga, where that was setting the stage for understanding the Supreme. And we saw how each living being is connected to that Supreme, but how they get lost in this material world. I mean, it was a short chapter. We had only 20 slokas, but it still was a very powerful set of teachings. And so, in that chapter, Krishna established himself as the supreme person, Purushottama. And in the current chapter, now Krishna is shifting the focus. And he's shifting the focus on how to align now with the divine nature. So he already explained how he is the best and what all qualities he has. And he also said that we, are turning away. We are, having bondage in the material world. And now he is shifting the focus and trying to tell us, how can we align? How can we align with his divine qualities, divine nature? So let us see how chapter 15 leads to chapter 16. So 15 was pretty much like a metaphysical foundation, I would say, where he taught us how to distinguish the perishable from imperishable. Do you remember the terms used for perishable and imperishable? Okay. 1, 2. Simranji, what was it?
Kshara and Akshara.
Excellent. So that is all part of a metaphysical foundation. So he's talking about that which is perishable, that which is imperishable, the absolute truth. All of these, they come under the science of metaphysics. And in chapter 15, he also asked us to use the weapon of detachment. That was a very powerful command he had given. He said, Asanga Shastrena. That's the word he used. Whereas in chapter 16, he is going to ask us to use discernment as a tool. Discernment for what? Because he is saying we have to align with the divine qualities. And here he is going to ask us to use discernment to understand what is divine, what is not divine. Because if we don't understand that, how can we say that we are aligned with the divine? So that's kind of the fundamental context here. And like he spoke about Kshara and Akshara in chapter 15, here he's talking about Karya and Akarya. I mean, things that we should do, which is Karya, and things that we should not do, which is Akarya. And knowing the difference is through discernment. So that is how he builds up this whole foundation for this chapter. So here in the 16th chapter, he begins by listing 26 divine qualities. I mean, they cover qualities like fearlessness, purity, self-control. We will go into detail. And in 16.4 to 16.6, he then talks about Asuric or demoniac qualities, which are pretty much based on ego and ignorance. Now, if you recollect, because we are already on the 16th chapter now, so if you recollect, Shri Krishna has spoken about divine qualities throughout the Bhagavad Gita. So in second chapter, he spoke about Sthita Pragya and equanimity, detachment. In the 10th chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, if you remember, he spoke about all his divine glories, Vibhutis, which included his divine qualities. In chapter 12, which was Bhakti Yoga, he spoke about what are all the virtues of a devotee. And in chapter 13, Kshetragya Vibhāga Yoga, he spoke about 20 qualities of the virtuous person. You may remember we went through that entire table of virtues. And in 14th chapter, Gunatraya Vibhāga Yoga, he explained how Sattva Guna, or mode of goodness, aligns with divine qualities like clarity, peace, joy, so on and so forth. So maybe some of you, whoever is super keen on spiritual evolution, it's an exercise. You can just go through chapter 2, chapter 10, 12, 13, 14 and try to extract what are all the divine qualities Krishna has already spoken about, and maybe create a list of all of that. See how much you can find. It will be a very fulfilling experience. Because going through that itself will be a purifying experience. You do it with humility and do it with open mind and see how many qualities he has already spoken about, and then ask yourself, how many do I remember? That's the key. Okay. So now let us see what are all the Daivi qualities or divine qualities Krishna talks about. Now it's very interesting that he starts with Abhayam. Abhayam is fearlessness. It may seem a little odd. I mean, we may say, why is he not talking about truth or compassion? And because he has spoken about a lot of these things earlier, and it may seem like, why is he, putting Abhayam first? That is why I'm going to go more into details on this one particular aspect. Okay, because a fact that we should all understand is fear is kind of the cause of many other negative traits, many other negative virtues that we develop. Like for example, fear can make us lie. Fear can make us cheat. Fear can make us cling to unworthy attachments. Fear can sometimes even make us forsake dharma. A lot of things can happen because of fear. And according to Vedanta explains very beautifully why fear even is a problem. Where does fear come from? The Vedanta says that the fundamental reason for fear is the identification with this physical body. Identification with? What should we identify with? Chara or Akshara? Yeah. Okay. So, the identification with that which is perishable, that which is temporary, that Vedanta says is one of the main reasons for fear. Because if we realize that we are that supreme, if we realize that we are that unchangeable reality, then how can we be afraid of anything? That is the message here. Back in the second chapter, Krishna had explained 2.56, where he had said that one whose mind remains undisturbed amidst misery, who does not crave for pleasure, who is free from attachment, fear and anger, is called a sage of steady wisdom. So the need to be free of fear came way back in second chapter, where Krishna had given that message to us. So see, if you look around you, you will see that many times the saintly people or people who are really, virtuous, usually they are alone. They prefer not to mingle with too many people. They are usually leading a life which is aloof. Whereas if you look at people who are crooked, people who are engaged in bad activities, you will see that they are always moving around in groups. They always need company. Why? Because when we are having sattvic gunas, like when we do good, when we think good, our higher self automatically pulls the consciousness higher. And when our consciousness is higher, see, fear is a lower level of emotion. So when our consciousness goes higher, then there is no room for lower emotion. So automatically the fear goes away. See the problem? Whereas these crooks and cheats and all of them, because they are giving into tamasic gunas, their consciousness is at a much lower level. So when their consciousness is a lower level, fear, because see, this is the kind of a paradox you may say, because they are the ones who are in groups, whereas the sattvic person is alone. So technically, you will think that the person alone should be in the mode of fear, whereas a group will not be in fear. But if you actually go deeper, the paradox is they are in a group because they are subjects of fear. And this person is alone because he doesn't have the fear or she doesn't have the fear. Because what happens? Tamasic gunas, lower level of consciousness, they can't escape that fear. And to compensate for that insecurity, compensate for that fear, they try to make up with company. They think if there are many people around them, somehow that gives them a sense of security. They try to mask that inner fear through this artificial means of being with the crowd. Whereas The true fearlessness, it comes from within. It cannot come just because you have 10 people around us. No? It's a very, very important lesson here. See, regardless of how we are, one thing to remember is, doesn't matter if you are practicing Daivi qualities or if you are practicing Asuri qualities, they have a tendency of pulling you more towards them. So in other words, if you pick one Daivi quality, one good quality, and if you try to practice it even a little bit, that quality itself has the power to pull you more towards more of those qualities, and vice versa. For example, if you give in to lying, for example, it's very tempting because sometimes it looks like, that lie will be a shortcut. But if you give in to that, then automatically it will pull you to other negative qualities like cheating, and, there's a big list that follows. So this is something to keep in mind. So that's the law of Prakriti. I mean, it never fails. The law of Prakriti says like attracts like. So you give in to one negative, it will keep pulling you more and more towards negative, and soon you will be trapped. It's almost impossible to come out, and vice versa. If you always do Preya and Shreya, that, discernment, and if you always choose Shreya, then eventually it will become easier and easier for you to be on the side of Shreya, because that qualities have the power. They will keep pulling you. Now, does it give you yet another context on why Krishna says consistency is important? Imagine like one minute you are trying to align towards positive gunas, and after a few hours you're like, okay, I'll take a break and I will go align with something negative. See what happens. That is the problem. That is why Krishna says that Ananya Chintan, always have that consistency, so that there is no chance of us falling. Because if you are consistent, then you will keep going higher and higher and higher. That is the whole idea. Again, I want to repeat some very important lessons. A very important lesson here is this whole concept of like attracting like. One good thought taking you towards more good thoughts, and one bad thought taking you more towards bad thoughts. That is the law of Prakriti. So because it is a law, nobody is special. Nobody should sit and think, oh no, I am very special, or Krishna likes me, so I don't have to worry. I mean, that is delusion, because the law applies to everybody. Krishna himself says Samadarshana, so the laws don't discriminate. If a law applies to one person, the same law applies to any other person. So the point is, we have to be fearless in order to defend our good qualities. We have to be fearless in order to pursue our good qualities consistently. Very important. And that will help you make you more and more fearless. And the other lesson is, as we said, attachment causes fear. Because even when we are attached to this temporary life, we are attached to this temporary body, that also is a very strong attachment, which is a cause of fear. And that is one more reason why Krishna has said practice Vairagyam. Why Vairagyam is so important. Vairagyam, Samatvam, surrender, Atma Nivedanam. These things are like formulas to help us get rid of fear and keep progressing on the path. See, it doesn't matter how high our level of consciousness is. At every point in our life, we have a choice on whether we want to take it higher or whether we want to go lower. And what do you think determines which way we go? Most of the times, knowingly or unknowingly, it is going to be fear. That fear or lack of fear will determine which way we go. If you are in a mode of fear, you may keep going lower. If you are lack of fear, you may keep going higher. I'll give you a small example. Once, I used to work in Amazon, so years ago in Vancouver, and I was walking. I had a colleague, and we were walking on the street of Vancouver, and we came across a Buddhist monk. It's very unusual. It's kind of rare, but a Buddhist monk, dressed in a very traditional Buddhist cloth. From nowhere, he just came across, and these monks, they don't beg, but he needed help. So he was trying to tell us that, would you like to donate for a cause and whatever. So in a very dignified way, he was trying to get some help. And me and my colleague, we were trying to understand what's going on. And, there's this colleague, he just blatantly told him, "I'm sorry, sir, I just don't have any money." And I knew that that's not the truth, because I know him well, and I know that he's a lot more wealthy than I am. He's actually a wealthy guy. And so I was kind of confused, and I was just, later on, I asked him, I helped in a small way. We walked on, and then I asked him in a very friendly way, ki, "Bhai, what happened?" In a jokingly, I told him, "Paisa nahi hai ka matlab kya? What are you saying, dude? You are like so much more well-to-do than I am. What's going on?" And then he told me something very profound. He said that, that person was openly Buddhist, and he had the Buddhist clothes and all. And if I helped him, and if somebody saw from my community, they will not take it kindly, because people of my community, they don't encourage helping people from like a Buddhist or such faiths. And I'm not trying to figure out who that community is or whether it is right or wrong, but what I'm trying to now explain is the mindset. See what happened now. This person actually wanted to do good. This person could have done good, but there was this fear of social acceptance or social rejection. He had this fear that somehow his community members may not be happy with it. And that fear prevented him from doing something, which was so easy. That simple help could have been very easy, and he could have done it. You see the problem? So this is one of the very simple examples of how fear can prevent us from doing good. And sometimes fear can actually make us do bad also. Look around you. Many times people go and harm somebody else just because they think, their community will praise them, and if they don't do it, then their community will look down upon them. So that fear, if you can see, manifests itself in many, many negative ways. So that is the reason why Abhayam is number one that Krishna has put in his list. I will revisit this again, when we go through the other qualities. The second is Shaucham. Shaucham is purity, and specifically purity of heart. Which doesn't just mean, the purity of the body. Like you cannot just have Shaucham using, soap and water. That Shaucham is about alignment of thought, speech, deed, in such a way that it's free from any kind of selfish or harmful motives. Only a pure heart can do that. And only a pure heart can get the divine grace of God. I think Krishna has spoken about this in the 4th chapter, where he said, "Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga sansiddha kalenatmani vindati." In this world, there is nothing as purifying as divine knowledge. One who has attained purity of mind through prolonged practice of yoga will receive such knowledge within the heart in due course of time. So way back in the 4th chapter, Krishna has emphasized the need for purity. Okay. Then the third quality Krishna talks about is Ahimsa. Very, very important quality again. You all know, like, Ahimsa is probably the most popular Sanskrit word in the in the Western civilization or globally, mostly because of Gandhi popularized that word. So that is why Ahimsa, a lot of people know what it is. However, it is misunderstood. Ahimsa is misunderstood as a passive act. So people think Ahimsa means somebody is going to come and hit you, you will just stand and let them hit you. Because that is how it is portrayed. Even in movies and all, they will show that dozens and dozens of these freedom fighters, they are doing nothing, and these guards are coming and beating them black and blue, and they are just taking it all. But that is just a part of it. That is not true Ahimsa. Because if you look at Vedanta, if you look at the actual concept, Ahimsa is a very dynamic force. And Ahimsa comes from a position of strength and compassion. Ahimsa does not come from a position of weakness. So the definition of Ahimsa is a person who has the capacity to retaliate, chooses not to. Then it is called Ahimsa. Otherwise it is cowardice. See, somebody very strong is in front of you and they are trying to hurt you and you are so scared you are running away. And then you are going and saying, I practice Ahimsa. So that is the whole difference. Because if you are afraid and if you run away, that is cowardice. Only the fearless and the strong, they are capable of non-violence. So as I said, I told you earlier, I'll repeat. That is why Abhayam comes before Ahimsa in Shri Krishna's list. Because if you cannot practice Abhayam, you cannot practice Ahimsa. You cannot even practice Shaucham. There is pretty much none of the qualities you will be able to practice consistently if you are always in a mode of fear. Very important. In the Mahabharata, very interestingly, this Ahimsa is also attributed to the quality of gentleness. A very beautiful word, mrudanam. It is what is used to describe gentleness. So, it's a very nice sloka. It says, Mrudana mrudavam hanti, mrudana hanti darunam, na asadhyam mrudana kinchit, tasmat tikshanataro mrudah. The gentle conquers the gentle. The gentle conquers the hard. There is nothing that gentleness cannot gain. Gentleness is the most powerful thing, the most penetrating thing. What does gentleness mean? Gentleness doesn't mean, something that is in fear. Gentleness means something which is strong and assertive. No fear. See, a great example is water. Do you all agree that water is very gentle, soft, right? But it's well documented that this gentle water, it has cut through mountains by consistently flowing. All it does is keep flowing, but flowing gently. The entire Grand Canyon, if you go read up the, wiki on Grand Canyon, they will tell you that the Grand Canyon was formed just by water flowing consistently. So Mrudanam, gentleness, was able to cut through something so hard as even rock. Such a beautiful concept. And that gentleness can arise only from a position of fearlessness. Be fearless and be kind and be assertive. That becomes a lethal, powerful force. That's a beautiful lesson. So that brings us to Pragma 15. Be fearless, be gentle, be strong, because these are essential for goodness to thrive. I hope that makes sense. The fourth quality is truthfulness, Satyam. As you know, Satyam has been repeated throughout Vedanta, in Upanishads, everywhere. What is that supreme personality? He is called as Satchidanand. So he starts with Sat. It is Sat, Chit, Anand. So if you are not aligned with Sat, there is no way we can go and realize that Satchidanand. Look at it that way. The simplest and most powerful reason why we should always align with Sat, truth. And see, truth does not just mean I'm not lying. That is not enough. Truth also means your inner reality has to match your outer expression. That is why Krishna has said Mithyacharis. He doesn't take kindly to Mithyacharis. Even the Ramcharitmanas says there should be no hypocrisy. Lord Rama also says you have to approach me with a mind which is free of any kind of hypocrisy and deceit, malice. Why? Because that is another aspect of, for example, I'm looking at somebody and internally I'm feeling very annoyed. Internally I'm having some anger or I'm having some kind of hatred. But externally I'm like, hi, how do you do? See, that is not being truthful. I'm not saying be arrogant with that person. It's the other way around. Feel pleasant inside also. Like instead of just, fixing your external, fix your internal. So your internal has to align with external. That is what is known as genuineness. If you're not genuine, then you're not aligned with truth. If you just think I'm always speaking the truth, so I'm truthful, that is delusion. That is not being truthful. That is just being a parrot, which just says whatever it hears. Real truthfulness is my inside and my outside perfectly aligned. So we have to practice that. Very important. The fifth main quality is Daya, compassion. Anybody has any ideas why compassion comes as a virtue? Any interesting thoughts? Yes, Sulataji?
Compassion can promote that sense of oneness. We can be, when we are in the position, when we are engaged in the position of kindness, compassion and love, we can see that we are the divine spark of the same Brahman.
Exactly. Thank you so much. So it aligns with what we just discussed, because everybody knows the theory, Samadarshana. The other day I asked a question and so many people told about, vision of that and Samadarshana and so on. But do we feel Samadarshana? How do you align with that? That is through compassion. Because if you can really see Krishna in everybody, including ourselves, then how can we not have compassion? If we don't have compassion, that means we are seeing something else. That means we are not really practicing Samadarshana. See the point? So that is why, or that is how compassion fits here in this narrative. So, Gautam Buddha also spoke about this. He calls it Karuna. And just for context, he spoke about 4 sublime states of the mind. First one is, so instead of just saying compassion, Gautama Buddha, he breaks it down into 4 elements. So he says, the first is metta. Metta is loving kindness, which is an unconditional kind of a love. The second is karuna, which is compassion, which is more like empathy and wanting to help anybody else or any other living being get out of any kind of pain. The third, he calls it as mudita, which is sympathetic joy. Very difficult to do for a lot of us, but this means when somebody else succeeds, can you feel happy? Or do you feel jealous, or do you feel envious? So if somebody succeeds and we are happy, that is the third kind of compassion according to Gautama Buddha. And the fourth kind, he says, is upekha, which is equanimity, which is, can you be impartial, not just towards everybody, but also towards the ups and downs in your own life. That is another aspect of compassion as per Gautama Buddha. And this is what Shri Krishna called as samatvam. So all these teachings, they will all align because they are all talking about the truth. They all have to align somewhere. So these are the main virtues. And apart from that, Krishna also spoke about many other virtues which are considered to be secondary. They are still positive. So I will just quickly go through the list. One is dhamma, which is self-control. And then generosity, which is dhanam. Then forgiveness, which is kshama. Because kshama is another aspect of daya. Daya towards whom? This is very interesting. Forgiveness is an act of compassion towards your own self. When you are forgiving somebody, you are not being kind to that person. You are being kind to yourself. Because as somebody said, non-forgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Guess who it is killing actually? If you are holding a grudge, every day it is eroding your own peace. It is harmful to you. So forgiveness is having compassion to your own poor self. So please keep that in mind. And then gentleness, we just spoke about that. Mardhavam. Modesty. Modesty basically is let your actions speak, for themselves. Don't run behind social validation. Don't run behind attention. Constantly seeking attention, constantly seeking validation, that means we are not in a mindset of modesty. That is not modesty. Because what happens otherwise? What happens when we are all the time running behind validation and attention is that is we are feeding the ego. Who needs attention? Who needs validation? It is the ego. So if we keep doing that, the ego keeps pumping up. And when we are modest, we are helping put that ego under check. That is the whole idea. Again, modesty comes from a position of confidence and strength. Because, for example, if I do a good job, and even if you don't appreciate me, I know I have done a good job and I am satisfied. That is coming from a position of confidence. Okay, whereas if I am not confident, I do something and I'm expecting 10 people to praise me, clap, and if they don't, then I'm like, oh, did I really do something good? You see? So that is what modesty is all about. And the sixth is absence of envy. Na atimanita. It is very beautifully said that comparison is the thief of joy and envy is its companion. So comparison and envy, they go hand in hand. They're always, going together and they steal our joy. So Krishna is calling these virtues as divine wealth. And he says they provide a stable foundation for spiritual progress. And that is how we go towards liberation. So they are like practical tools Krishna has given us for a life of meaning and inner peace and connection. And so very important. So my request to all of you again, I gave you an exercise at the beginning. You take your own time, but create your own list. Is the way human mind works. If you are honest with yourself, the qualities that you think you need to work on, they will jump at you when you are going through the list naturally. Because for example, if I am an extremely courageous person, a warrior, Abhayam will not jump at me because I'm already in fearlessness. You see, but compassion may jump at me because my inner self will tell me that is what I need to work on. So go with an open, honest mind. Look at all those chapters I told you about. Of course, I'll share the notes which will have the chapters also. And your inner self, your inner guru will guide you automatically towards those virtues that you need to work on. Create a list of that and every once in a while keep looking at it and introspect. Am I better now than before? And that is, I think, a very powerful tool to practically help us evolve constantly. So after talking about all the good qualities, Shri Krishna now completes the picture and he's saying, I will also tell you what are the demonic qualities. These are the qualities which we should not have, needless to say. And he starts the list with dhamba, which is arrogance. Because arrogance is the same as too much pride. That is the first on his list. Because an arrogant person always believes that they are above everybody else. I know this. I already know this. Who are you to say this? I'm better. I'm richer. I'm smarter. I'm this. I'm that. I'm that. Very, very destructive. Because we need to understand that Krishna said in the previous chapter that every breath depends on Krishna. What are you talking about? You doing something great. You cannot even breathe if divine grace wasn't there. That realization has to be there. If it is there, how can we ever get into dhamba? Many scriptures have given examples of how this arrogance has brought down powerful people. Great examples like Duryodhana. Duryodhana, that was his biggest vice, his arrogance. Even if Krishna is coming and saying, he is so arrogant that who are you to tell me? And see what happened. The other great example is Ravana. See, Ravana was a very great personality. In fact, his the Shiva hymn that he has given, that is one of the foremost hymns that is studied by all Shaivites. And he was so powerful that he could converse with Shiva himself. Very learned. He knew all the Vedas He was a really great person as such. But that arrogance brought his downfall. Arrogance because even when his own brother is telling him that Bhratashri, you are making a mistake. But that pride, that arrogance would not let him see the truth that is standing in front of him. So that is a lesson for all of us. Okay? And then krodha, anger. Both pride and anger, they have been called, they go hand in hand, just as we said that comparison and envy, they go hand in hand. Just like that, pride and anger, they go hand in hand. Because usually what happens, pride means lot of self-importance, entitlement. You own the world. That is pride. And when the desires are not fulfilled, that gives rise to anger. So that's why they're always going together. And Krishna is telling Arjuna, please keep in mind that these qualities are going to take you astray. They will not let you succeed on any path. And the other Asuric quality he's calling out is ajnana, ignorance. This is something people have asked me in the past, like, why are we calling, not knowing something as a demonic quality? So I want to clarify. Ajnana does not mean you just don't have knowledge. Ajnana doesn't just mean you don't have schooling. Ajnana is talking about spiritual ignorance. Spiritual ignorance basically means you have no inclination to even know about your own true self, your own true nature. That is what lets you be ruled by delusions and all those other negative qualities. And that never lets you remember your real nature. You are always forgetful of that divine supreme nature. And that is why ajnana is a demonic quality. Because how can you gain knowledge if you are full of those demonic qualities? What keeps you in ajnana? Like even today, is there any shortage of saints? Is there any shortage of jnanis? Is there any shortage of gurus? Is there any shortage of knowledge? I mean, all the Vedas are at our fingertips. Upanishads are at our fingertips. So what keeps people in ajnana? That is most of those demonic qualities only. Pride. The top is pride. I know what is right. Or I know everything. And so on and so forth. That is why ajnana is a demonic quality. And then hypocrisy and harshness. Hypocrisy we already discussed. Why it is a demonic quality? Because hypocrisy pretty much is a symptom of non-truthfulness. Something else inside and something else outside. So that is, Krishna clearly calls it out as demonic quality. Lord Rama has also called the same thing as a demonic quality. And harshness is being called as a demonic quality. Now, I want to provide a quick clarification here. There is a difference between being strict and being harsh. Because as a parent, you will be strict with your kids. But the kids may perceive it as being harsh, but that is not the real definition of harsh. The definition or the distinction given in the scriptures is being strict or being very firm, but it is with an intent of doing good to the other person. Whereas harshness is you are having the intent of hurting the other person. So you will say something really negative, you will say something very derogatory, but the intent is to hurt the other person. So that is called as harshness. But if you are just strict and assertive and your intent is for the well-being of the other person, we won't call it harsh, we will call it being strict. But of course, it is better to even work on that. Even strictness, if we can try to do it in Mridhanam, I think that will be more aligned with divine qualities. I'm saying this because in one of the other discussions I was having, one mother actually felt very kind of upset. And she was like, Guruji, what are you saying? You are saying harshness is demonic quality. My kids always say I'm very harsh. So does it mean that I am very demonic? So that is why I thought, I need to give this clarification. Is the bhava is what always makes the parents have to be strict, the teacher has to be strict, the cop has to be strict, and that is not the same as being harsh. So let us have that differentiation in mind. So what happens So Krishna has said that these are the divine qualities, these are the demonic qualities. So what happens if we follow the demonic qualities? Very tricky, because according to Krishna, first they are going to block their awareness of divine. They are going to get lost in material pursuits. They are going to be in bondage because of their ego, And Krishna says, what did I just tell you? I told you that the law of Prakriti is one negative leads to another negative. So people who are pursuing such negative qualities, in the next birth, they are going to be born even lower. And when they are born even lower, they are going to be aligned with more demonic qualities. And you see where it is going. And that is why Krishna is warning us. Yet, there is a very big differentiator here between this teaching of Krishna and many other teachings of other kind of teachings that talk about not committing sin or anything. What is the difference? The difference is Sanatana Dharma and also Krishna's teachings, they never talk about any kind of eternal condemnation. There is no such thing at all here. Krishna never says that a person is doomed forever. Krishna will never say that anyone who is aligned with demonic qualities can never, there is no hope for that person. That is not what Krishna says. In fact, Krishna is saying that even a person with demonic or asuric traits can turn their life around. All they have to do is start with one good. You remember that saying, every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. That is a very Sanatan Dharma way, where he's calling out what is demonic, what is divine, but he's not saying that if you have any of this demonic, you're doomed. All he's saying is we have to be mindful, we have to be aware of it, and we have to work on it. And it is possible. We can work on it and we can turn ourselves around. A great example is Valmiki that we have already learned in the past. Valmiki had so many asuric qualities and he was himself a dacoit. But that one change, that one turn towards Rama, kahan se kahan, from where he got, he became one of the most venerated saints. And that is possible. And that is the teaching of Sanatana Dharma. Very, very important. So how can we integrate all these teachings in our everyday life, practical life? I'll give you some tips. Whichever appeals to you, try to practice. First, I would say, get real. Let us get real with ourselves. It's a very good habit to keep a journal. I think some of us already do that. And we should be honest about our thoughts and feelings and actions and note it down every day. If not every day, at least once in a couple of days, or at least on the weekends when you find some time, reflect on what happened. What have been the situations that you have faced? How did you react to those situations? Were you truthful? Were you compassionate? Try to be mindful, aware, try to catch, try to figure out in which of those situations, which of the qualities have surfaced. In project management, we have this concept, Rajesh ji may know this, but sometimes after a project, a sprint is done, we have something called as a sprint retrospective, where we, create columns on the board and we say, what are the things that are good and we should continue doing? What are the things that are bad and that we should stop doing? And what are the things that we should start doing? So that kind of a technique we can use for our own self. Like look at how we have been in the past day or past couple of days or past week, and then say, okay, these are the things that I do well or I have done well. Let me continue doing that. These are the things where I have had a challenge. Let me stop it. Let me try to change, and let me try to find opportunities for some virtues that I have not been able to demonstrate. It's a very, very practical way, but I think that will really help a lot of us. And satsanga, very important. Satsanga, in the true sense, satsanga means you are conversing with your tribe on a regular basis. That is the whole point of a satsanga. So, because that keeps our energies aligned in a positive way, is very, very powerful, extremely powerful. See, these teachings, they are not just words. As I said, every chapter in Bhagavad Gita is called as some yoga. What that means is, there is a theory also, and it has to be practiced. So now we have all done 15 chapters. This is the 16th chapter. If we practice the learnings from these 15 chapters, we are already way ahead of the game. But that practice is very important, and that is why I'm giving you this kind of practical tips. I hope this is all making sense. Would you like a short story? Let us take a short story that illustrates one of the divine qualities, divine traits. Let us take this quality of compassion. And this story I took from the Puranas, so it supposedly happened, but it happened long ago. So we can start the story like any fairy tale. Once upon a time, long ago, there was a great king. His name was Shibi. And so he was very kind, and he was very generous, and he was very compassionate. So compassionate and so kind that he was known for it. Like, for example, Raja Harishchandra was known for being truthfulness. So the entire world knew him for that. Just like that, the entire world knew Shibi for his compassion and kindness. And once he was sitting in his, the garden, the royal garden, and suddenly a dove came and, fell on his lap, and the dove was in fear. The dove was trembling, And so the king was trying to understand why is this dove in so much fear and why is it trembling. And just then he sees a very ferocious hawk chasing it and coming behind. Then he understood why the dove was in so much fear, And then the dove tells Shibi, the dove says, "Oh great king, you are known." See, these were those days, when the animals can also speak. The days of truth. Today, even humans can't speak properly. But those days, the animals could also converse. So the dove is telling Shibi that you are known as a very compassionate person. You are known for your kindness. I have come to you for protection. Now you have to protect me. And yeah, of course, Shibi feels so much compassion. But then the hawk also tells the king, says, that dove belongs to me. Because I have been chasing it for a long time. And it is now mine. You are the one in between me and the dove. Then the king says, but the poor dove, it's in fear. It's why do you want to hurt it? Like, I want to protect the dove. And then the hawk says something very, very smart. The hawk says, I am a hunter. That is how Prakriti has made me. So this is how I can get my food. If you don't give me that dough, I'm going to go hungry. That means you are not compassionate to me then. How is that fair? How is it fair that you are compassionate to the dough but you are not compassionate to the hawk? Now that puts this king in a dilemma. And he starts thinking, yeah, the dove also needs protection. The hawk also has a point. Now what do I do? But see, this is where we say, Shreya versus Preya, and having conviction. And he says, I understand your point, but because the dove has come to me for protection, I have to protect the dove. It's my duty. And while he's thinking, the hawk is getting very impatient. The hawk is like, okay, but what about me? Like, I told you that you have to be compassionate to me. My hunger is already growing, But then the king, he had many virtuous qualities. Not just compassion, but also samatvam. So this king had the ability to be calm even under pressure. So just because the hawk is so impatient and pushing him, he didn't just say, okay, take the dough, He was very calm. He was thinking very rationally, and compassionately. Very difficult to do that. Okay, so then the king finally tells the hawk, I understand your problem too. And I don't see a solution because you are so hungry, you need food right now. He says the only solution that I can think of is whatever the weight of this dough, that much weight of flesh I'll give you from my own body. So okay, he calls one of his maids and says, bring me a weighing scale. So they bring a weighing scale. He puts the dough on one side and he cuts a small part of his thigh and he puts it on the other side, but it's not enough. And he's like surprised because it's a tiny dough. Then he cuts a little more. He cuts a little more. He keeps cutting, but the weight is never enough. The dough is still heavier, but he is not relenting. He has so much conviction in his own compassion, in his own dharma, that he doesn't give up. Finally, it looks like he's going to cut his entire body. And that is when the hawk and the doe reveal themselves. They are Indra and Agni. They have come disguised as hawk and a doe, and they were deeply moved by King Shibi's selflessness, by King Shibi's conviction in his virtuous qualities of compassion. Isn't that also lack of fear? He's not afraid that he will die. There is no fear. If he was so afraid, what will happen to my leg, what will happen to my hand, he could not have been King Shibi. See, again Abhayam comes into play here. So the story goes on that Indra and Agni became so moved. They have never seen such a conviction and so much compassion, and so they bless him and they grant him whatever boon he wants. And so this story is a very popular story, and it is recited at least old school. Our grandparents used to tell this story. See, in our own lives, we don't have to do anything so dramatic. We really don't have to cut our body or anything. But what is important is to understand this whole notion of compassion and how that compassion is possible only when we are also calm in a mindset of samatvam and fearless. All of these have to come together. Only then we can practice many of the virtues that Shri Krishna is talking about. So that is the key lesson for us. And finally, I think one more quick thing I want to say is Krishna talks about the importance of free will. And Krishna says that although Asuri and Daivi qualities, they may appear to be set in stone. In other words, it may feel like we brand people, don't we? Don't we say that, that person is a bad person? Or don't we say that, we use terms like cruel person, rude person, arrogant person, as if that person, has no other way. In other words, as if when we say a rude person, that means only rudeness will come to him all the time or her all the time. You see, we brand people like that. Sometimes we brand our own selves also. Don't we do that? Sometimes we brand ourselves. I'm like this, I'm inferior, I'm not good enough. So in other words, what does it mean when we brand somebody like that? It means as if we are saying those qualities are set in stone, unchangeable. That is what is implied when we brand people. However, Krishna says that is not true. He says anybody can change their destiny at any time. That is a very assuring statement coming from Krishna. So he says that law of karma, they ensures that yes, the actions will bear fruits according to the nature, but it also allows for new seeds to be planted. If we are having a lot of fear, we can always plant a seed of fearlessness today, now, and it will grow. It is possible. All that is required is be open to that possibility. That is a very empowering message. So what is the turning point? The turning point is self-awareness, mindfulness. You may remember we talking about that earlier also. Only when we are mindful can we even have this intention of changing something. And Krishna says once that intent comes that you want to change, the change can happen. It is possible, is what Krishna is saying. Every single step, he says, in the right direction can set the stage for spiritual advancement. So I hope all this makes sense. I hope it is all sounding interesting and helpful. With that, I can stop talking. Hare Krishna. And I'll open the floor for any questions, comments, doubts. The floor is yours, my dear Satsanga.
So Guruji, if we say chapter 15 is all about Purushottama, or like chapter 14 is on Guna, so if you have to give one word to chapter 16, what would it be?
Look at the title, na? Chapter 16 ka.
Sorry, I missed that.
Daivāsura
Daivāsura Vibhāga Yoga.
But
Oh.
That is the
Divine
title
and
of the-
demonic natures. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Daivāsura Sampada Vibhāga Yoga. Daivāsura, which is demonic and divine. Sampada Vibhāga Yoga. Just like we had, Gunatraya Vibhāga Yoga. That is the title of this chapter. So Krishna is going through, technically he's going through the qualities and which qualities will actually help us and which qualities will not help us. And he's asking us to be mindful so that we know which qualities we are knowingly or unknowingly aligning with. That needs changing. And sometimes we make excuses. Like one very, I'll give you a very, very popular example. This example was given by a Maharaj, a Guruji. I was listening to his pravachan very recently. Just last week I was listening to his pravachan, and he's someone I follow. And so this businessman was sitting in his darbar. So he was a businessman and he was telling the Maharaj that, Prabhu, aap to jante hain, like that business mein to jhoot bolna padta hai, so how can... And then the Maharaj stops him right there. He says, no, that's not true. It's not true that you have to lie if you are in business. See, for example, you got something for $10 and you want to sell it for $12. There's nothing wrong in that. Everybody understands that it's a business. A business means you have to make a profit. You can always be true and say that the cost price is 10, my selling price is 12. You don't even have to tell people what the cost price is. You can say my selling price is 12 and that is a fixed price. He says the problem is just to impress the customer, you are going to say, oh, I bought this for $11.5. No, I'm giving it to you for 12. I'm only making 50 cents. And creating this unwanted, empathy and making them feel bad for you and or coming across as you are such a great... He says all that is what is lie and which is not required. No, he says even a business can be done in a mindset of truthfulness. You may find it difficult, but the customers that come to you will stay with you. So what I'm trying to tell you is, in our own lives, we make these excuses. We make excuses for many of those Asuric qualities that we, align with. Sometimes we will say it is my job security. Sometimes we will say, whatever. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you see the point. And that is where it is very important to be mindful. Be mindful and catch yourself. What am I doing? Is there a better way to do this? What am I saying? Is there a way to say the same thing while aligned more with truth? And I can tell you with confidence that I do this all the time. Initially, it was very hard for me, but I kept getting better at... I'm talking specifically about this truth part, because I'm also in corporate sector, so I understand sometimes the pressures but now I think I'm getting very good at, saying things in a way which conveys the message without hurting anybody and also aligned with truth. It takes time, but it also takes that willingness. If you have the if you don't have the willingness, we choose the path of least resistance, whatever is easy, that is the whole idea here. Okay, very long answer to a very short question. Okay, so if nobody has anything else to add or any other comments, I'm okay to... Yes, Chitraji, you want to say something?
Hare Krishna, Guruji. So, Ahimsa, is silence also a part of Ahimsa?
It depends. If the only thing you can say is going to be hurtful, then yeah, silence is Ahimsa. Yeah, maybe I didn't understand the context in which you are asking, but yeah.
No, many times, when people are talking or in a place where you feel you're confronted, but then you don't want to say anything back, or then you're choosing to stay silent.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, like, somebody is saying something which is probably not the best. And instead of saying, you don't know what you're talking about, it's okay if you want to be silent. That's what I said. If the only thing you're going to say is going to be hurtful, then choosing silence is ahimsa. But if what you say is going to be the truth that can help, but you are choosing not to, then that is not ahimsa. That is more like obstruction of truth. So the context really matters on when you want to be silent. So the spirit of ahimsa is avoiding harming anybody. Do you know that even there are rules for even satya? There are rules for when not speaking the truth is okay. Of course, they're all very technical. They go very deep into the whole science of dharma. But for example, if it is going to save somebody's life, you can tell a lie. There it is not going to be counted against you. In fact, there it will be the opposite. There if you brute force and say, no, I'm going to say the truth, and if it causes somebody's death, then actually the truth causes a sin. So that is why, in most of these teachings, the context is very, very important.
Yeah, that's when you practice with discernment.
Yeah, that is why when you ask a question like, is silence ahimsa, we cannot give one answer because the context is very important. Silent when? Silent for what? You see, very, very important. That is why Shri Krishna spoke about these qualities in so many chapters, because he has to give us Krishna could have just said that here are the 37 or 38 qualities. He could have spent like 5 minutes and he's done, right? But he is going through them in so many chapters, because that is how, we get the context and we understand the intent, we understand the essence of it. So that's the whole idea. Okay. Yes, Sulata ji?
Actually, fearlessness, you can hear me, no?
Yes.
Yeah, fearlessness, we should not be afraid of anyone, and at the same time, nobody should be fearing us also. So compassion is very important, because as you said, combination, you should go hand in hand, these virtues. Fearlessness, mere fearlessness is not enough. Compassion, truthfulness, everything helps in developing the other virtues and going ahead.
Exactly. See, the beauty is, if you don't have the other virtues, then you cannot really be fearless. Then what you are is just arrogant. Again, I think the key to understand is fearlessness is an inside job. Outwardly, you can look calm and peaceful, and let people say that, this person seems afraid, that is why they are not making noise. It's okay. You don't care. Internally, you have no fear. That's how it should be. In fact, somebody told me the other day, I was talking to a psychologist in a very healthy discussion, and they were telling me that most of these extroverts, most of the people who are very noisy, most of the people who are, coming across as, very powerful or very noisy they said they are all people who internally they feel lacking, and they overcompensate by being very loud or being, very abrasive and so on and so forth. People who are actually content within, who have full of self-confidence, they tend to be more silent. They tend to be more calm. So what I'm trying to say again is, fearlessness is an inside thing. It's not like how you come across. So thanks to all of you. Grateful to all of you. And let us continue on the path, and let's all meet again in the next session and continue this discussion. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna, Guruji.